ayubowan. So today we're going to focus on Cambridge Book 14, right? So in terms of academic writing, it's not just the academic component, but it will also have the general component at the end, okay? So if you're a student who is doing general, right, you can go through the task 2 questions. It's okay, right? But if you want to go through task 1 and task 2 questions, it's towards the latter part of the video. And this video will take some time, right? Just like the other books. So I want you to take your time and slowly do it. There is no rush, okay? The video will be quite lengthy, but you can pause the video and do one test, review it. Make sure you go through your vocabulary, the collocations, the cohesive devices, right? And then you can go to the next test. All right, so moving on, academic writing task 1 in test 1, right? So the charts below show the average percentages in typical meals of 3 types of nutrients, all of which may be unhealthy if eaten too much. So let's have a look at what are these 3 types. We've got sodium, there's sodium, there's saturated fat, and there's added sugar, okay? So the average percentages of sodium, saturated fats, and added sugars in 3 typical meals in the USA, right? So here we have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, right? And then again, right, so in terms of breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, okay? So you know the light color one is breakfast, and then the plain one is snacks, the dark one is dinner, and next to that is the lunch one, okay? So there's like a little pattern on it. So if you take sodium, right, the average percentage of sodium is very high in dinner, okay? And it is the same for saturated fat, but it's different for added sugar. In terms of added sugar, mostly it's there in snacks, okay? Then, of course, second place is for dinner. Then, of course, when it comes to lunch, sodium has the second highest for lunch, and it's the same for saturated fat. And, of course, for added sugar, it's in third place. So I'd like you to pause the video here for 20 minutes, okay, and then have a go on it. So pause the video for 20 minutes and then try the task on your own. Now, what you need to remember is that you have to do the 5-step process. So you have to follow the 5-step process, right? So you analyze the question, you identify the main trends, you write the introduction, you write the overview, and then finally you write the detailed paragraphs. So I'd like you to take 20 minutes and write your answer, and then when you finish, let's have a look at a sample answer together. Right, so I hope you would have finished the answer by now. Let's have a look at an answer, okay? So what do we start off with? We start off with the introduction. So you can write down the pie charts show. Right? Now, if you go to the question, it tells you average percentages of sodium, saturated fats, and added sugars in typical meals, right? So think about how you can paraphrase it. How much sodium, saturated fat, and added sugars were consumed in the average in the average meal in the United States. Right, let me just move this a bit. Moving on, overall, it is apparent that the majority of sodium and fat were consumed at dinner, while most sugar was eaten in snacks. Lunch also tended to be salty and have a lot of fat, while breakfast had the lowest percentages for all three nutrients. So we continue with the next paragraph, which I'm going to talk about dinner and lunch. Had roughly similar large proportions for both sodium 43%, that is for dinner, and 29% for lunch, and saturated fat 37% for dinner and 26% for lunch. The amount of sugar in an average meal for dinner and lunch was much, let me scroll up, lower at 23% and 19% respectively. Turning to breakfast, which I'm going to talk about breakfast only, and breakfast in terms of snacks, right? When turning to breakfast and snacks, which also had comparable percentages. They were both made up of 14% sodium. For saturated fats, snacks contained 21% and breakfast was slightly lower at 16%. In terms of sugar, right, let's scroll up. There was the greatest disparity with 42% of snacks being sugary and just 16% of breakfast being made up of sugar. Okay? So here we have followed the 5-step process. So here we have the introduction, we have the overall, which is the overview. Then we have 2 body paras, okay? So you can think about how you want to divide the paragraphs. You can write it in 3 paras. Talk about sodium, saturated fat and added sugar, or you could even categorize breakfast and lunch, dinner and snacks together, right? So you can decide how you want to categorize your features. However, it should build up in a logical structure and that clear progression must be there in your answer, okay? So I started off with dinner and lunch, okay? And then I have a look at breakfast and snacks. So I've done lunch and dinner because those are the 2 populous types. And then I do breakfast and snacks. So if I pinpoint in my answer, I've started by saying dinner and lunch. So it is a signposting, or it gives the sign to the reader to say, okay, I'm only going to write dinner and lunch here. I'm not going to write about breakfast or snack. But here, in the next one, I write about breakfast and snacks. Can you see? These 2 together, these 2 together. And in terms of those, I then talk about sodium, saturated fat and sugar. And in this one, I do the same. I talk about sodium, fat and saturated fat as well as sugar. Okay, so that's what I've done. You can decide on how you want to categorize your information. All right? Okay, so with that, we move into writing task 2, which is our essay question. Now, some people believe that it is best to accept a bad situation, such as an unsatisfactory job or shortage of money. Others argue that it is better to try and improve such situations. So discuss both views. Oops, I keep on doing that. Discuss both views and give your opinion. Right? So one is that you must accept the bad situation. The others say, no, you must improve such situations. So discuss both views is a discussion style essay. Whereas give your opinion is an opinionated or argumentative style essay. So this is a mix of both styles. Right, so I'd like you to take 40 minutes and write your answer, and at the end of 40 minutes, let's have a look at a sample together. Off you go. Alright, so hopefully you've finished writing your answer. Let's have a look at a sample answer. Now, it doesn't have to be the same thing, right? Now, because for you, you can either agree that, accepting the bad situation is good. You don't have to really change it, okay? Because that's how things are, and after some time you can always think that things will become better. But others, you can think, no, we should try to improve such situations. We should think about different ways how to earn money, okay? So it depends on what your opinion is. Let's have a look at a sample answer together so that you can start writing your own. You can have a look at your one, right, and compare it against this. Now, as I always tell you, I can write so many answers, okay? But you need to make sure you get your answers checked, because that's when you can get a lot of feedback in terms of the 4 marking criterias. Now, I give you feedback based on some of the answers that I put. Remember the critic answers, like I tell, okay, let's have a look at a sample and I say this is 4, this is 6, right? But same way, you should also get your answers assessed to make sure that you know exactly where you stand. All right? Okay. Right. So let's write down. Let's start off by saying there are conflicting views about whether people should accept a bad situation or make efforts to improve it. Right? While there are some justifications for accepting certain bad situations, making an attempt to overcome negative aspects may be a better solution. Right, next para. On the one hand, people who insist that bad situations should be accepted, tend to lack the courage to change their life. For example, many people, this is quite a common example, right? Who stick to a bad job are afraid of quitting. They do not like their job, and yet they do not want to quit because they are, let's scroll up a bit, afraid of the uncertain future. Consequently, they accept the bad situation without making an effort to improve it. There are also some bad situations that are beyond, let's just erase that, beyond our power to improve. Let's talk about the other side. On the other hand, certain situations can be improved if we make an effort. For example, Nobody has to suffer in a bad job when better jobs are available in the market. Of course, this might require learning a new skill or acquiring a qualification. But it is worth our while. Likewise, people suffering from poor health can see some visible improvements if they adopt an exercise routine and a healthy diet. Those in toxic relationships can regain their sanity by opting to break up. Hence, the argument that all bad situations should be accepted without complaining. Does not exist. In conclusion, this essay discussed that although people sometimes have reasonable excuses to live in a bad situation it is beneficial to try to improve adverse circumstances. In my opinion, it is better to try to get out of the negatives. Right, okay. So here we've got a lot actually, okay. I have written the intro, okay. I mean, intro is usually just one sentence. I've made it two, but obviously you can just leave it with one sentence as well, right? And on the one hand, right, I explain about people who insist that bad situations should be accepted, right? They tend to lack confidence, and I talk more about it. On the other hand, I say that it could be improved as well, okay? So you could think about options to change what is a bad situation, okay? So you could learn a new skill, and for example, if you have a toxic relationship, give up that toxic relationship, okay? If you've got poor health, make sure that you eat and drink and exercise well, okay? So finally, in the conclusion, I say, well, this essay has discussed that although some people actually say that, you should accept it as it comes, some people actually try to change it. And I believe that it is better to try to get rid of all the negative aspects in life, okay? So if you want to, you can pause the video and have a look at each of my paragraphs, okay, and compare it against yours and think about some of the good words, the collocations that you could actually use for your answer. All right, so we're going to move into test 2, writing task 1, okay? The chart below shows the value of one country's exports in the various categories in 2015 and 2016. The table shows the percentage change in each category of exports in 2016 compared with 2015. So let's have a look at it. So the export earnings, petroleum products, engineered goods, gems and jewelry, agricultural products, and then textiles. So you can see 2016 the highest was petroleum products, and for 2015 as well it was the same, okay. So change in values, petroleum increased by 3%, okay, we can see that. Engineered goods increased by 8.5%. Gems and jewelry decreased by 5.8%. Agriculture products, there was a slight improvement of 0.81%. And textiles, there was a massive increase, which was 15.24%. You can see that here, that increase. That increase in percentage is here in the table. So we've got a bar chart and we've also got a table. I'd like you to pause the video here for 20 minutes and write down your answer. At the end, when you finish, let's have a look at a sample together. Off you go. So let's have a look at a sample answer, right? And let's change the color maybe to purple. Right, okay. The bar chart and table show the information about a country's export earnings from 5 groups of products in 2015 and 2016. Overall, it is noticeable that export revenues in all but one of the 5 product categories increased over the period shown. While petroleum products were the highest earning exports in both years. The textile industry saw the most significant growth in earnings. Next para, export earnings from petroleum products rose from around 61 billion in 2015 to 63 billion in 2016, which was an increase of 3%. Income from engineered goods reached a similar level. Scroll up. The countries export earnings from these goods went up by 8.5 to approximately 62 billion in 2016. Next one. From 2015 to 2016, there was a 15.24% increase in export revenue from textiles with earnings rising from roughly 25 billion to over 30 billion. By contrast, there was almost no change in the amount of money earned from agricultural products which remained at just over 30 billion. Finally, not a real needed word, the only decline in income occurred in the gems and jewelry product group where export earnings fell by around 5% to approximately $40 billion in 2016. So, when we have a look at this answer, we have the intro and we talk about what are the two specific types of charts. We've got a bar chart and a table, right? And then we give an overall view, right, as to what is the obvious trend or trends. And then I talk about the export earnings from petroleum products, okay, how it rose, and in terms of engineered goods, how it also changed, because these two tend to be the most, these two are the most popular, okay. Then I also speak about the increase in revenue from textiles, okay, and then also agriculture products and the gems and the jewelry, which these three are less comparative to these two. So I've taken the ones which give the most earnings and then the ones which give the least earnings together. So these two go together, and then of course I've put these two together. Right, okay. So you can think how you want to categorize them. I think this is a good way to categorize them into the paragraphs, okay? So slowly pause the video and go through the paragraphs if you really want to kind of, compare it against your answer. Right, so moving on, we're coming into task 2. Some people say that the main environmental problem of our time is the loss of particular species of plants and animals. Others say that there are more important environmental problems. Discuss both views and give your opinion, okay? So one talks about particular species of plants and animals. The others say no, there are different things, okay? So two different views. This bit again is discussion. So you can see what comes mostly is discussion blended with opinion essays, okay? And that's why, if you remember, in the types of essays, we did the opinion essays as number 1 and the second one was discussion essays, because those two are the most prominent styles of essays that come up for the exam, okay? So again, I'd like you to pause the video here, take 40 minutes and write your answer. So hopefully you finished your answer. Let's have a look at a sample answer together, right? Let's write down according to some people, the extinction of animals and plants is the biggest threat that we face today. Next para. While I do not agree that this is a major issue, in my opinion, there are even bigger causes for concern. The loss of some plants and animals certainly poses a challenge. It will break the food chain and cause problems. For example, when predatory animals like lions and tigers at the top of the pyramid disappear, it will lead to an uncontrollable increase in the number of herbivorous animals who eat off leaves, right? We say shaka bakshaka. Unfortunately, this development will hurt farm yield as animals like deer, rabbits, and pigs will become vermin and eat up farm produce. This will lead to food scarcity all over the world. Moving on to the next para. On the other hand, climate change caused by human activity is an even bigger challenge. Due to pollution and the resultant greenhouse gas effect global temperatures scroll up are rising. This causes the melting the polar ice and the subsequent increase in sea levels. Major coastal cities all over the world are already facing the risk of getting submerged in the oceans. Climate change also leads to more frequent occurrences of droughts and flooding. This affects food production. Another issue is the health problems in both humans and animals. Many forms of birds and animals can no longer survive in the highly polluted urban areas. Moving on, people living in such places are facing various health problems like asthma and cancer. If the temperatures continue to rise at this pace, the planet may become inhabitable 2 or 3 centuries down the lane. Obviously, climate change is a bigger threat than the extinction of wildlife. In conclusion, the extinction of wildlife and the resultant loss of biodiversity is certainly a grave issue. However, climate change and the associated problems are even bigger challenges as they can threaten the very existence of life on the planet. Okay, so I think I've written lots of answers for you in this book as well, right? So we've written the introduction, right? And that was quite straightforward. And then I've written body para 1, body para 2, and the conclusion, okay? So one thing was talking about the loss of plants and species, first para, okay? How it does affect, okay? And the next one I spoke about a different one, which is the climate change and how it's caused and what kind of problems would come up, right? Okay, so we've got that bit there, and then so finally in the conclusion, right, it gives you a real summary of what I have spoken in my body paragraphs. All right, so moving on, we've got Test 3, Academic Task 1. Now here the diagram shows how electricity is generated in a hydroelectric power station. So it's quite straightforward. Okay, here is the diagram. I'd like you to take 20 minutes and write your answer. Alright, so I hope you would have finished your answer by now. Let's have a look at a sample answer, right? So now here you have a sample, an answer written by a candidate who achieved a band score of 6, okay? So let's have a look at it. A hydroelectric power station can generate electric power by using the energy of water flowing from high level to low level. It works different functions in day and night. In the daytime, water in the high level reservoir goes through the intake under the dam, which is only open in daytime. Then the water flow into the power station in which there is a generator, right? The generator is opened by a reversible turbines that can transfer the water flowing force to the mechanical force, which is the power of the generator, okay? So here you can see there's more to the answer. The student is writing some, there's clear progression, but there are punctuation errors, okay? But the student is using good cohesive devices. Simple sentence structures seem to be okay. Trying to attempt to write complex sentence structures even though they are not completely accurate, right? So seems like the student is on a band 6 score. All right. So I hope you can compare your answer against this one and see roughly where you stand and have a look at the band descriptors always, okay? Alright, so moving on, we have task 2 here, which is on test 3. Some people say that music is a good way of bringing people of different cultures and ages together. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this opinion? So what do you think about it? Do you think yes, it does bring people together? Or do you think no, it doesn't bring people together? Right, I'd like you to take 40 minutes and write your answer at the end. Let's have a look at a sample. Right, so I hope you would have finished the answer by now. Let's have a look at a sample answer, okay? So let's write down part of the community believes that there is no cultural or age limitation for the music business. Furthermore, it will bond the different communities together. Music is a global art and it is not dependent on the languages. Oh, it's not dependent on language. No, that's right. It's not dependent on any language. I strongly agree. Moreover, some great musicians are respected without any age limitation. Therefore, I strongly agree with the given statement. To begin with, the music industry is a well-developed art around the world. The internet and YouTube has connected people as well as music together. Anyone can hear any kind of melody by different composers. Moving up. This leads to an uplift in the quality of the melody industry as well as the quality of the musician. Since then, people of different nations bond with this kind of good melody. For example, let me just scroll the page up a bit. For example, one of the Sri Lankan songs Manike Mage Hite has been hit among Indian fans. Now there's something that I would like to pinpoint here, right? Now when we say Manike Mage Hite, that's like a Sri Lankan song. So when we take this song, Manike Mage Hite, right? Now that is a Sri Lankan song. You can write examples like that. I just took it so that, you know, I could talk about it a bit with you. I wouldn't really advise you to write something like this, but saying so, they tell you in your essay question, you could take examples from your own knowledge and experience. So that's also fine. You can't really say, I'm not giving the student any marks because I don't really understand this, right? But the problem is when we write things like this, they might not be able to read it, okay? I know it's Manike Mage Hite because obviously I'm Sri Lankan, right? But someone else who's not a Sri Lankan might not necessarily understand this bit, okay? And that is why I've put it inside inverted commas, or rather quotation marks, right? So that it is clear that this is something, this is a specific name, right? So you could bring out examples like that, okay? Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop writing it from here because I want you to kind of do it on your own, and if you've written an answer, then that's good, okay? So you can talk about this, okay? And then you can have another body para and then finally the conclusion, okay? So I'd like you to actually write the answer, and maybe you can put it in the comment section so we could have a look at it, okay? Or you can get it assessed by someone that you know English to see if there are any grammar or vocabulary errors there, okay? All right, so hopefully you've got an answer, right? And let's move on into the next question. So here you have 20 minutes, as you know, right? And here you have plans below show a public park when it first opened in 1920 and the same park today at present, okay? So let's have a look at it. You've got Arnold Avenue, you've got... Right, so let's have a look at the two maps. So you have Grange Park today and you have Grange Park in 1920, okay? So you've still got Arnold Avenue, right? And 1920 there was a stage for musicians, okay? You've got the fountain, and then you've got a rose garden here, you've got a rose garden here, and you've got a rose garden here. So there were 3 rose gardens, right? And there was a nice pond for plants. There was a glass house and the entrance from Arnold Avenue and the entrance from Eldon Street, okay? And then you've got some seats near the rose garden. However, by today, there still is the entrance from Arnold Avenue as well as the Eldon Street, okay? The fountain is no more. It has been replaced with a rose garden and there are seats around the rose garden. So there's a new cafe. The pond has been taken out and there's a children's play area, but there's a water feature, okay? There's also an entrance to the underground car park. And we've got the amphitheater for concerts, so we don't have the stage for musicians now. And we've still got 1 rose garden remaining, which was there towards the Arnold Avenue, okay? So, I'd like you to take 20 minutes, pause the video, and then let's have a look at an answer. All right, so hopefully you've finished the answer. Let's write an answer. Okay, so let me just move this a bit this side. The given maps compare Grange Park's current layout with its layout in 1920. overall, a lot has changed in the Grange Park over the years. Let's write down, in 1920, the park had 2 entrances, one from the Arnold Avenue and another from the Eldon Street. On entering from the Eldon Street, one would find a glass house on the right and a rose garden on the left, along with some seating area. Opposite the glass house was a pond for water plants. There was a fountain in the center of the park, next to which was a stage for the musicians to perform. Right, so let's scroll up a bit and the next para. Today, the fountain has been replaced by a large rose garden and the stage has been converted into a huge amphitheater for concerts. there are seats on all four sides of the rose garden. Moving on. The rose garden on the right, when entering from Arnold Avenue, has been kept as it is. However, the one on the left has been replaced by a cafe. Next to the cafe, a play area for children has been developed. A new water feature has been erected opposite to the play area. Near the water feature is the entrance to the underground car park. Right, so I think this as well, I've given you like a complete answer now, right? So I've written the intro, overall, there was nothing much to write in the overall, so I've just written that there's a lot of changes. And then in 1920 and today at present, what are the differences? So hopefully you've done it the same way. There's no other way that I can think that you can categorize the information, okay? That is the most easiest way, I would say. Right, so moving on to the last task for academic students. Nowadays, many people choose to be self-employed rather than to work for a company or organization. Why might this be the case? It's a direct type of question. What could be the advantages of being self-employed? So it's like an advantage, disadvantage, but asking the advantages only, okay? So I'd like you to take 40 minutes and write the answer on your own. The intro and move into the body, the student kinds of flows with it to the body para 1. That's okay still, because the student has a clear progression of ideas. Okay, so that's still fine. So next, the student talks about, what kind of things a business person would have, right? And in terms of how entrepreneurship versus working in an organization is, okay? So if you look at it, even though the clear paragraphs are not broken into, right, not been divided, the sentences flow in that logical manner and that clear progression is there. Use of lexis is there. Use of grammar, sentence patterns are there. Simple, accurate, complex, the student is nicely writing, okay? Here and there you can see a few punctuation errors, right? But I feel overall this is a nice answer, okay? And this kind of answer, you can pause the video and have a look at it, right? This kind of answer would give you a 7.5. So I'd like you to take a few minutes and read through the sample so that you can then compare it against yours and see, okay, the student has written these kind of words. What can I do? What are the words that I can replace? Okay. What are the cohesive devices that I could use? Okay. Example, perplex. Okay. Entrepreneurship. Okay. So have a look at those words. Nice use of cohesive devices. So the student says to start with nevertheless. Okay. In conclusion, or she says to sum up, he or she. In a nutshell, at last, firstly, secondly, nice cohesive devices. All right. So with that, we come to the end for academic students, and this is for the general students, okay? So if you're doing general, you know that your task 1 isn't a pictorial illustration, but it is a letter, okay? You have seen an advertisement in an Australian magazine for someone to live with a family for 6 months and look after their 6-year-old child. Write a letter to the parents. In your letter, explain why you would like the job. Give details of why you would be a suitable person to employ. Say how you would spend your free time while you're in Australia. Okay. So this is a formal letter because you're writing the letter to the parents. So this is a formal letter. Right. So I'd like you to take 20 minutes. Pause the video here so that we can have a look at a sample together. Off you go. Right, so I hope you would have finished writing your answer. Let's start looking at a sample. Okay, so let's write, dear sir or madam, okay, because it's a formal letter and you don't know who they are. I am writing this letter in response to your advertisement for a babysitter posted in the magazine Jobs. I am doing a bachelor. Let's say I'm doing a bachelor's in primary education at. So when we say at, okay, it has to be an Australian magazine. Don't forget that bit, okay? And you have seen an advertisement in an Australian magazine, right? And you're going to live with a family for 6 months. So it should be in a specific place in Australia, okay? So you can either say Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, okay? A place there. So I'm going to take Melbourne at Melbourne University. And since this pandemic has hit the country, my classes, or you can say my lectures, are completely online. I would like to have this job so that I can take care of my expenses while studying here. Scroll up. Second para. Since I am the eldest of my family, I am quite experienced in taking care of children. Both my parents used to work while my siblings were young, and I was the one to look after them. In addition, I am a calm person and will take care of your child with utmost sincerity. Last para. I am studying only during weekends and would like to take the day off on Saturday. Further, on Sundays, I would like to visit some beautiful places around the city. If you don't mind, I would love your family to join me on these trips. I look forward to hearing from you. You can even put a thank you here. Thank you for your time. You could even say that if you want to hear, right? And then finish it off by saying, yours faithfully, Sally Fletcher. Right, okay. So here we have the letter, okay, and we've got 3 paras here. So the first one is that you're writing in response and why you would like the job, okay. So I tell her that, I tell the parents that I'm doing a bachelor's. I can see some spelling errors, okay. A bachelor's in primary education, right, at Melbourne University. And since of that, everything's online, right? And I would like to cover my expenses. So I'd really like to have this job. Then why you would be suitable. So I tell her, or I tell the parents that, I've looked after my siblings and I'm also a very calm person, so I can look after your child well. The last one, say how you would spend your free time while you're in Australia. So I tell her, well, basically on Saturday, I like the day off because I'm studying, okay. So you can say, not I'm studying, you can say, I study only during weekends and would like to take the day off on Saturday. So further on Sundays, I would like to visit some beautiful places around the city. So if you don't mind, I would love your family to join me on these trips. So if the family is going on trips, I've requested them to take me. I look forward to hearing from you. Yours faithfully, Sally Fletcher. So 3 paras nicely given in the 3 bullet points order. So that's what I want you to do as well. All right. Okay, so moving on. Let's have a look at writing task 2. Now here, you know that you have 40 minutes for this task. Let's have a look at the topic. The growth of online shopping will one day lead to all the shops in the towns and cities closing. Do you agree or disagree? Okay, so it depends. You can plan your answer as you want, okay. So if you take your essay topic here, intro, okay, you can say, well, no, I disagree. Body para 1, why do I disagree? Because people like to feel and buy. Okay, so people actually like to touch and see and feel it and then buy clothes, some of us, okay. And then another reason could be that not everything could be bought online. I know that you can buy shoes online. There are so many people who do buy shoes, but sometimes the sizes change. Not every brand, it should be the same. But sometimes not every brand has the same size, the same fit. So you would really want to go and see it and fit it on and see how it is. Okay. So not everything could be bought online. You need to fit on and see, okay, is it good? Is it, the heel is good? Is it comfortable? Can I walk with? Things like that. Okay. So people don't want that hassle of going and then, requesting for a refund and then an exchange and things like that. So people would disagree with that. And then finally, you have your conclusion where you talk about as to why you disagree and future at least a few. Now, some of you can say, well, I agree with it, and then give reasons as to why you agree, and you can plan your answer. So I'd like you to take 40 minutes and then plan your answer. Right, so I hope you would have taken the 40 minutes and then written down your answer. Let's have a look at a sample. So this is an answer written by a candidate who achieved a 6.5 band score. Nowadays, millions of online shops are doing business and develop rapidly. The majority of traditional shops, Conchem, okay, I think it's concerned, if they will be bankrupt soon due to the fast-growing online shopping. However, some people argue that a great deal of shops can still survive. Firstly, the online shops always offer a very competitive price in order to obtain more and more consumers. They can always provide attractive promotion and sell products in bottom price because they do not have to pay extra rent and all of that, okay? So the student talks about it, right? The student talks as to why online shopping could be a really good option, okay? Intro is there, also the body para one is kind of merged there. Then the student goes on to talking about especially the younger generation, how they like to browse and go through the shops and then pick and choose what they want, okay? And all in all, it is difficult to say that what is advantage or disadvantage for online shopping. In my opinion, owners of business should attain to check the trend of the business and quote a best price for keeping the purchases, right? So the student has said, well, I'm not sure. There are positives as well as there are negatives, okay? So student does have some kind of, structure, some kind of structure going on, right? But the problem is the clear structure is not there, but there is some progression in the answer. Simple sentence structures are good. Trying to write complex sentence structures. Task achievement, I think the word count might not be sufficient, okay? There is use of cohesive devices, right? However, firstly, all in all, okay, so there are some linkers used, however, again, which is good, okay? So I think the student has achieved all of 6 definitely, and some positives of 7, so giving a 6.5 is reasonable for an answer like this, okay? Right, so you can then have a look at your answer and compare it against this and see, okay, is my grammar better, okay? Do I have more vocabulary used? I mean here, the student, I forgot to comment on the Lexis. The student is using a fair range of vocabulary which is related to the topic. So I feel this is fairly a good score for a student, okay? 6.5 because the answer does have the elements showing of a 6 completed. So student has all of 6 and then some positive features of 7, okay? Right, so moving on into test B, which is the second one, we'll have a look at the writing task 1. You have just read an article in an international travel magazine which contained some information about your town that is incorrect, okay? So you've read an article in an international travel magazine, okay, which contains some information about your town, and that was incorrect. Write a letter to the editor of the magazine, so formal. Correct the information in the article, right? So in your letter, so I'm writing this letter to the editor of the magazine. And in my letter, first body para, I must correct the information in the article. So what is wrong? I must tell them these points are wrong. This is what is the proper information. Explain why it is important for the magazine to give the correct information. Why? Then suggest what the magazine should do about in this situation. Okay, so again, it is a suggestion here, right? So correct it, then tell them why it is important, and then finally give them a suggestion. So take 20 minutes and write your answer. I hope you would have finished writing your answer. Let's write a sample one together, right? So since it's formal, I'm going to start with Dear Sir or Dear Madam. Right? And then, so I have to kind of give an introduction. Okay, so I'm going to tell them, I am a regular reader of your travel magazine Beautiful Destinations. Right? So you kind of give a self-introduction before you start writing it. So I'm a regular reader of your travel magazine Beautiful Destinations. In its May issue, the magazine highlighted our town Hambantota, which is quite exciting, for us, as it would make our town known to millions of global readers and attract many international tourists. Now this bit was like a little introduction. It does not cover these 3 bullet points because I wanted to give an intro and make sure I set the scene properly. Now I can start writing what the correct information in the article. So I can tell them this was wrong, okay, and this is the correct piece of information, okay. So let's move on to write the remaining bit. However, the article contained some incorrect information that I am concerned about. First, Hambantota now has 2 airports instead of just 1. And the second one was built recently. In fact, the newly built airport is used for most international airplanes to land and depart. Secondly, now let's make it capital. Birds Park which is one of the most popular tourist attractions in our town. Our town is not prone to frequent storms as claimed in the article. In reality, it was hit by tsunami at least 14 years ago, which is not even a storm. Next para, I believe these facts may confuse your readers and will reduce many visitors coming to our town as tourists. Besides, and internationally, renowned magazine like yours should not leave any scope for negative reviews due to inaccurate information in, let me just scroll up, in its article. In light of the above, I would request you to investigate the facts that I have pointed out and correct the information in your next issue. Thank you in advance. Yours faithfully, Billy Alfred. Okay, so here what I have done is I started, as I told you, with a little intro, and then of course I got into the first para. Okay, so I told them what the mistakes were. Now bear in mind, this is not the real piece of information. Okay, I just made it up because I needed to write it. Okay, you don't have to write true pieces of information. No one is checking your understanding or your general knowledge, or are you providing true facts. Okay, this is just a writing test, so I want to make sure that I use enough language to write the answer. Okay, and I'm not in favor of any town, so it's just that I randomly picked it up. Okay, so I talk about Hambantota, right? And it says that, you know, I'd like to put Hambantota inside inverted commas as well, right? So now has two airports instead of just one. Okay, and the second one was built very recently, and we use it for international airplanes to land and depart. And secondly, the Birds Park, which is one of the most popular attractions, right, in our town, is not prone to like frequent storms. And you know, we had the tsunami, but that was not even like a storm. Okay, and then I talk about the next one, why it is important to give correct information, because it might confuse the readers and it will reduce the number of visitors coming in to our town as tourists. And then, you know, being such a renowned magazine, you don't want them to put down any inaccurate information. So in the light of the above, you would like them to request to change the facts, investigate it, and then correct the information in their next issue. Okay. So thank you in advance. Yours faithfully, Billy Alfred. Okay. I just make up names. You don't have to put your real name. You could just make up a name and put it there. Right, so I think here as well you have a nice sample and you can compare it against yours. Okay, see if you've got that clear progression, the grammar, the vocabulary needed to bring out the specific ideas. So moving on, we have our task 2, which is the essay. Now, some people think it's better to choose friends who always have the same opinions as them. Other people believe it's good to have friends who sometimes disagree with them. Okay, not always, sometimes. Discuss both views and give your opinion. So friends who always have the same, opinion, that is one, and some who disagree with them. So what is your opinion? Okay, I think it should be something in between. I don't think they should always agree. I don't think my best friend should always agree or disagree. I think we should agree for what is good and disagree for what is not good. Okay. So it depends how you think. Okay. You could choose friends who always agree with you. Or you can think, okay, I'm going to choose friends who always disagree because that's good for me, right? Depends how you want to write your answer. I'd like you to pause the video here, take 40 minutes and write down your answer. Right, so I hope you would have finished writing your answer. Let's have a look at a sample, right? So let's write down, it is no doubt that people should have healthy friendship bonds, thereby the choice of friends, thereby the choice of friends is of a high significance. Right? Although some people believe that it is better to choose friends who have the same opinion on everything like them. I would argue that it is better to have friends of a balanced view. Alright. On the one hand, those who believe that we should always have the same opinion as our companions might argue that thereby we would rarely have arguments with them. The reason for this is that there is no opposite way of thinking and this would lead to an agreement upon everything. Next bit. Upon everything. Let's continue. This is beneficial for the duration of the friendship and the possibility of having the same goals and working on them together. Right, so here I have written the intro and I've written one body paragraph. So let's write the next one. On the other hand, I believe there are also advantages of having the opposite opinion sometimes. This could lead to a more dynamic and less boring friendship. If we always agree with our friends, our friendship could become monotonous and monotonous means the same way, right? Ekakari. Monotonous and uninteresting. Okay? Beyond that, you can always learn something from the opposite way of thinking and develop your opinion by hearing different approaches. In conclusion, despite the positives that come with the continuous agreement of friendship, it is my firm belief that having some different opinions lead to an overall healthier friendships and broaden our horizons and broaden our horizon. Right, okay, so here I have written again the intro, okay, and why that having the same opinion is good, because less arguments, okay, everyone agrees upon everything. However, on the other hand, right, you believe, that is I believe, right, that there could be opposite opinions, and this could also make sure that you think and you get new ideas as well. So in conclusion, I believe that you need both. You need to have somewhat the same opinion, as well as sometimes you need to disagree to bring out more options, to think more beyond what you could actually think. All right? So I hope you would have followed a similar structure. You wouldn't have the same thing, but at least some similar points or similar structure is good enough, right? All right. So we're moving into test C, which is the next one, and let's have a look at task 1. You recently did a short cookery course. The cookery school has asked for your feedback on this course. You write a letter to the course director. Describe what you enjoyed about the course. Say how much cooking you've done since the course. Suggest another cookery course you'd like the school to offer. Nice letter, okay? So this again is a formal letter. So you need to tell them what you enjoyed about the course and what you have done since then, and then something that you'd like the school to offer so that maybe you could take it up later. I'd like to give you 20 minutes. Pause the video here and write your answer. Right, so I hope you would have finished writing your answer. Let's write down a sample answer. So, let's write down, dear sir, or you can even say dear madam, I am Amy Fletcher, who recently followed a cookery course at your renowned institute. Right, so I'm kind of giving a self-intro, okay? I am writing, or you can just merge it, no? Renowned institute, let's merge it. Institute, and I am writing to express how happy I am about course. I attended this course about a month ago in an effort to enhance my culinary skills. I think let's put culinary art skills, no? Okay. Let's continue. I must admit that even though the course was taught intensively, it was very useful. I felt like the time had passed rather quickly since I enjoyed the course so much. Scrolling up. By the way, the best thing about the course was that it comprehensively taught me how to make Italian food quickly and easily. Besides, I enjoyed learning about the tricks of chopping meat so nicely. So now I'm going to talk about what I did since then. After finishing the cookery course, I used my skills to open up my own restaurant. I prepare different types of dishes especially Italian. Last para. Further, I would also like to request you to introduce a short course at your institute on cake decorations. Finally, thank you for conducting such a useful course. Okay, so I put the name up here. So who is it going to be? Amy Fletcher. So I'm going to put here yours sincerely. We don't know the name, right? So they need to be yours faithfully, Amy Fletcher. All right. So again, I have got the 3 paras, okay, and like a little introduction at the start. Right, so we've kind of had a look at the sample answer, and now we move on into the next task, which is the general writing task 2. All right, so let's have a look at this one. Some people say the main way to be happy in life is to have a lot of money. How might having a lot of money make people happy? That is question number 1. Okay. And then what other things in life can make people happy? So this is like a direct essay question, okay, where you have 2 questions, right? How might having a lot of money make people happy, right? And then what other things in life can make people happy? So I would say they're not asking you for your opinion. So intro. I'll be talking a bit about happiness, okay, and then body para 1, how will it make you happy when you have a lot of money, okay. So number 1, can buy anything, can travel, so it could make you really happy, okay. Depends on what you want to write. I'm just giving a sample. Body 2, right? What other things in life can make people happy, right? I think love, affection can make people happy, okay. And then of course you have your conclusion. And I would say you need kind of both. You can bring your opinion or you can just write a conclusion and put down a summary. Right, now this one, I'm not going to write the answer. I want you to start writing it on your own now, okay? So I've written lots of essay questions with you. So I'd like you to do this one on your own and you could then have a look at the answers and see, maybe you could put it in the chat box, the comments box, so we could have a look at it. I always say chat, but it should be the comments box, okay? Or where you can type up your comments. So take 40 minutes and then write your answer, okay? After that, we're coming into the 4th test, which is test D. Again, you have 20 minutes to do task 1. You recently went to a concert and thought one of the singers were really good. You want to tell him how you feel, write a letter to the singer, okay? So again, I would say it's somewhat semi, okay? Say how you feel about his performance, give your details. You can say he or she, okay? Give details about your musical activities and explain how you would like him to help you with your musical activities. Okay, so you really don't know him. It is kind of formal, but you would know his name as well. So kind of semi, I would say. Okay, so off you go. Write it on your own. Okay, and then again, you can put it for us as a comment for us to review it. Okay. And coming to the last one, I'd like you to do it on your own again, which is the last essay. Many people work long hours, leaving very little time for leisure activities. Does this situation have more advantages or disadvantages? So this is like an advantage-disadvantage essay, but it is mixed along with your opinion because they're asking you, what do you think? Does it have more advantages or more disadvantages? So you can take 40 minutes and then write your answer. So we've done a lot today actually, okay? And we've had a look at the entire book, which is book 14, okay? So we've had a look at the academic book, as well as we've had a look at the general book, okay? And you know that there are 2 books. So we've had a look at both books, and what I've done is I've given you a bit of homework as well to do it on your own because I've done so much of answers with you, sample answers. So with that, we round off with having a look at all the test questions, or rather the practice questions from the Cambridge book 14.